Gal Gadot, better watch out. Because my next guest on Different Strokes is a Wonder Woman in real life. She has managed to beat the big C once, and she's gearing up to batter it once again, and this time hopefully for good. She's a huge vodka lover, calls it the vitamin V, and never steps out without her red lipstick even while visiting the hospital. You've got to meet this woman who is so full of life that even the big C is going to bend down on its knees and say, I quit. Please welcome Devleena Ganguly.
Thank you very much, Devleena, for agreeing to feature on Different Strokes. I'd like to start with the question that I do ask every guest I invite, because we try and bring stories of inspiration so that we're able to, send this message out in the world that, there is still hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And this is not the end of the day. And we as human beings have immense strength to fight back and bounce back, whatever be the circumstances. So I do want to ask you, what was that life-altering incident that changed things for you significantly?
Firstly, Diksha, I would like to thank you for this opportunity, for letting me share my story with people. And I would want to say that, 2016 was a life-altering year for me. I am an only child. I'm a late child. My parents were married in 1972. I was born in 1982. So I was pampered silly. I was spoiled rotten. And, till my father was there, till 2014, I grew up in a very cocooned, sheltered household, despite having to work in the media, etc. Even after my father's death, though, life took a turn for the worse, as in responsibilities, etc., it was still all going fine. But in 2016, I was diagnosed with cancer, thyroid cancer. It was malignant. And I had to undergo total thyroidectomy, and post that I had to undergo 2 radiations. And even though I was declared clean of cancer in 2018 July, and all of 2019 was okay for me, 2020 being the year that it is, on the personal front too, it didn't turn out to be too good for me, because in February I went for my biannual checkup and my blood parameters weren't good, the thyroid globulin parameters. And the doctor asked me to, wait for 6 months without pushing the panic button. And in August 2, the results weren't that good. So right now, I don't know if I can call myself cancer-free. But cancer in itself, even though it was not fatal, thyroid cancer is really fatal. And from day one, I knew that, it wouldn't impact my life, as in, it wouldn't debilitate me, or there was no fear of losing my life. But the word cancer itself was something that I had only read in news, seen in movies, and again read in books. This is something that had happened to others. I never thought that the big C, as we call it, would be a part of my life and I would be battling with it. And that was a life-altering moment for me. The funny or the weird thing is I went to collect my biopsy reports alone, because I had a gut feeling that it would be malignant. And it wasn't anything about ego, but I wanted to deal with the primary impact myself. Means I'm a very social person, but a part of me is intrinsically very private. So I wanted to deal with that moment on my own. And I still remember standing there at the laboratory, holding that envelope, opening it. My hands were shaking because I was scared. There are very few times in my life I have been scared. I have been called brave by numerous people who know me. I like to consider myself brave, but at that point of time, I wasn't feeling too brave, to be honest. So, and I saw the word malignant. And, as they say, it's a cliche, but it's also true. The ground beneath my feet, it shook. So I arrived at the doctor's chamber, and a very funny incident happened there. Was my best friend, he came over, and he said that he would bring his aunt and mother too, so that my mother wouldn't freak out and she would have someone her age to talk to.
Right.
So he was there at the doctor's chamber and he was howling. And I was talking to him and I was reassuring him, and other people at the doctor's chamber were looking at us because he was howling really loudly.
Right.
And when we went inside, my doctor started laughing. He said that, it seemed as if he is the patient. Something is very wrong with him. And you are the one consoling him and telling him that everything is all right. So I don't know what changed with me in that 30 minutes from, the laboratory to my home. All the fear had disappeared and I knew that my dad was no longer there. My mom was 73 at that point of time. And I knew that, I had to do this.
So you suddenly felt a huge sense of responsibility towards your family, that you had to put up a brave face so that they don't fall apart.
Exactly, because I knew that if I fell apart or I showed signs of weakness, by family I mean my mother, because I have no qualms in saying that, my extended family are not at all supportive. But, God has been really kind, because what I lack in my extended family is more than made up by my friends.
Right.
Be it my partner, be it my best friend at that point of time, be it my other friends, they have done for me more than any family member could ever have.
No, I'm sure it's amazing to have friends, because you choose them actually, and that's what is great about them, that you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your relatives, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Yeah, but tell me something, Devleena, when your mother learnt about your thyroid being malignant, what was her reaction? How did she take it?
The first thing was, my mother, what happened is, and what's still happening is, the roles have reversed. The roles have reversed and I'm now more of a parent to her, and she is my child.
Right.
So I came with the report. She did call me when I was at the laboratory and she asked me what does the report say. So I said it's not too good, but let's discuss when I reach home.
Right.
So I remember she was there opening the door, and the first thing I told her was that you are not going to cry. Because see, dad, and I was very strict. I was like, you are not going to cry because dad isn't here anymore. It's you and me. We have to fight this. I'm not going to die, I promise you. No one has died of thyroid cancer as far as I know, and I don't intend to be the first one. Those were my exact words.
Right.
And I was like, so I'm not going to die. I'm not going to go anywhere, but we need to fight this, and we need to fight this together. You have been the strongest person in my life. I get my strength from you. So you're just not going to cry, but it's malignant. And I saw her face crumpling for a few seconds. But Diksha, I have to tell you this. All the strength that I have, most of it is from this woman. Because her face crumpled for a few seconds and then she looked at me and she said, of course, you are going to win this fight.
Right. Well, that's what mothers
and
do
she did
best.
Yeah. The only time I've seen her actually crying is, when actually I had a relapse in 2018.
Right.
My surgery was 2016 December. In 2018 December, I had a relapse after my first radiation. The radiation didn't. The cancer relapsed in my voice box. And the nodes were so small that two surgeons that I consulted, both of them said that they were inoperable. And if a surgery was done, there was a chance of complete voice loss.
Right.
So they would give me a higher radiation of 200 units, which was really high. And I remember that my mother had gone to me with Tata Memorial. I had told her that you are my lucky mascot. I've always taken you for exams and all, and for whichever exams you have accompanied me, they've all gone well.
Right.
So I told her that you come to Tata Memorial, they will do the USG, etc. And if you come with me, everything's going to go fine. But imagine her state, the USG didn't come out all right at all. And my mother saw me that way, and that was the first time I saw her crying, and her words, which I'll never forget till I live. For the first time ever, she told me that your father is very lucky. He's not here to see this. I've still not been able to forget this.
Yeah, I can imagine what she must be going through, and it must have been really difficult. It's for nobody to imagine that. I'm really at a loss of words right now. But I do want to ask you, Devleena, that when at the time you were declared free of cancer, and the 2 years that you lived without it, what were those 2 years like?
Those 2 years, I was relieved at a point that, the cancer wasn't there. But anybody who's had cancer will know that, it's like a sword hanging over your head.
Yeah.
Every time I go for a test, the biannual test, I would really freak out, and I would be like, okay, what if it's back? What if it's back? And, I would keep texting my partner, and I would tell him, because I refused to discuss it with my mother. I didn't want to discuss it with her. I tried keeping things as normal as possible at home, because my mother is a high blood pressure patient and she's already had 2 strokes. So I didn't want to do this with her. So I would go on pinging him and telling him, will it be back? And maybe it was unfair of me, but he was rock solid, and he would go on saying it will not be back. And even if it's back, you will fight it like you have, but it won't be back. Right. So the 2 years when I was cancer free, I tried to live my life as freely as possible, which, to be honest, I also did when the cancer was there, because I must tell you that after my surgery, right after my surgery was on the 17th of December. And Christmas is a huge thing, because I come from a missionary school.
Right.
So Christmas is a huge festival for me, which I've always celebrated. So I remember telling my friend that I want to go to South City Mall. And at that point, I couldn't talk. I was given a sticky pad, and I was asked to write down things, because like nearly headless Nick in Harry Potter, my neck was slit from one end to the other. So I wrote to him that I want to go to South City Mall for Christmas lunch, and he told me that it's too much, don't. Maybe for New Year, but not for Christmas. And I wrote to him that if you don't take me, I will call a driver and I'll go alone, and even if I faint in the mall, I'll still go. So we went to South City, and not only that, I'm a vodka lover, and I had my first drink just 8 days after my surgery. I work in the corporate sector now. I left journalism in 2018. And it's a very high pressure job. Most days I'm working 10 and a half, 12 hours. And even today while working, I'm propped up against 4 pillows, and those pillows are propped up by a suitcase, so that, my back feels a little support, because at times it feels, the middle of my spine, it burns with pain, and it feels like it will snap into 2. So the 2 years without cancer have not been a cakewalk.
Right.
But yeah, means these were things which I was warned about, and my lungs also took a hit. Right now, I'm recovering from a respiratory tract infection, but it's something I can't claim that I didn't know about. This was a collateral damage I was warned about, and I know that they had to do what they had to do.
Right.
They were targeting the cancer, and so this could have happened, and it happened.
Right. So it was typically a choice between the devil and the deep sea, right? So you had to choose the devil.
Yeah, I had.
So let's try and lighten the conversation a little. Tell me, you mentioned about the vodka incident, and that was the first drink that you had days before or after. I think after your surgery, right? Right. So, what other crazy things that you've done really to keep yourself and your spirit alive? Because there's too much battering that's happening because of your health conditions. So, what other silly, mad things that you've done?
I forgot to tell you something. Totally. The thing is, once, this is when I was getting admitted for my surgery. I love makeup, and by makeup, it's not the whole entire hog. It's just kohl and lipstick, and bright colored lipsticks. Means nudes aren't meant for me. Subtle colors aren't meant for me. The brightest of pinks and reds you can think of. Those are the colors I love wearing. So, of course, when I was going for my surgery, I had my eyes deeply lined with kohl, and I was wearing a bright red lipstick, and I was wearing some Fab India pajamas and all. And I remember I was filling up my own forms, etc. My mom signed the permission slip because someone else has to. And I remember suddenly my cousin, my entire family, and some of my friends, etc., they were there on the day of the surgery. My cousin started laughing. So I was like, what happened? He was like, the attendant was arguing with the billing desk person because he had asked the billing desk person to show me the patient. I will take the patient upstairs to her room. And and I was pointed out. And he said she cannot be patient because she looks too happy and she looks too unpatient-like. So and the billing desk person had a hard time convincing him that she's going to undergo surgery in 24 hours time.
Right.
And it doesn't end there. Once I went to Tata Memorial, and the security guard, he asked me, why are you here? Apni keno eshechen? He was very strict. And I was like, hello, I'm the patient. I'm here for treatment. I haven't come here for a picnic. And my friend told me that you cannot blame him. Look at yourself. He was like, no one in Tata Memorial is so decked up. It's a cancer hospital, for God's sake, and look at yourself. So I ensured that, that I looked the way I do. I never step out without my kohl and my lipsticks. And I made sure that even cancer couldn't take that away from me.
Yeah, that's the spirit, I think. Why should you let anybody take away that from you, right? If it's a part of you, part of who you are, part of your personality, so be it. I mean, the world can
even while getting
yeah.
Yes, and while getting released, I wrote on the sticky note to my mother that send me my makeup pack with my friend and send these clothes. Don't send me dowdy clothes because I'm not going to step out wearing dowdy, shoddy clothes. So she sent me my makeup bag, and I was fully decked up, holding on to my friend. My balance was a bit, shoddy at that time, and my neck was bandaged, etc. But fully cold eyes and lipstick, and all the nurses, they were so happy to see me that way.
Nice. So, but tell me something. Did you also refuse to wear the hospital clothes, or were you okay putting them on?
No, I was okay. I was not just okay putting them on. I still have selfies on my phone. Means, clicked right before my surgery. And
I thought you must have demanded something nice and flashy and the
I wish I
colors. Yeah.
I wish I could. And especially the size was twice my
Yeah,
size back then. But yeah, that was fine.
yeah. Well, we
Great.
can complain all we want about the sizes and the colors, but yeah, they are not going to change, unfortunately. So
No.
anyway, let's move on. And I do want to ask you about, if you were to look back at the time that you've had, the past 2 to 3
Right.
years, would you have done anything differently?
Yes. The thing is,
Hmm.
as I told you, I couldn't give myself the scope to break.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I think I was just, I don't know if I make sense right now,
Hmm.
but I think I was just trying to be too strong.
Right.
I could have gone a little easy on myself.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if I were to go back, I would do that. I
Right.
would be a little bit easy on myself.
No, I can understand. It can take a toll on you, putting up that brave face for your people around you, so that they don't
Yeah.
get impacted. It's
Yes.
not easy.
That takes an impact on you, and that manifests itself in the long run.
Yeah.
Means right now I am undergoing therapy for anxiety and depression,
Hmm.
because I was having 4 to 5 panic attacks in a day
Hmm.
at any point of time, not when I was stressed,
Hmm.
even when watching a movie on Netflix or jewelry shopping in Newmarket, any time of the day,
Hmm.
in my sleep. So there's Gaurav, whom you have talked to,
Yeah.
Gaurav Pramanik. He is battling cancer, and he's a huge inspiration, one of my biggest allies and support.
Hmm.
So he referred me to a therapist,
Hmm.
and currently I'm undergoing medication for severe anxiety and depression.
Hmm. Hmm.
So looking back, I feel it would have been a little easier on myself.
Right. No, it can definitely impact the mental health. I mean, so much that you've gone through. It's not easy to go through any of that. But tell me, what is it that you're most grateful about?
I'm most grateful about, apart from my
Hmm.
mother and the support that she continues to give me,
Hmm.
because not all parents do that.
Hmm.
She does. She understands me, and the support she gives me, the understanding she gives me. The other things I'm grateful for are my friends
Hmm.
and the person I have in my life as my partner.
Hmm.
Means I couldn't have asked for more. The people in my life are my biggest blessing. They are my biggest support, my biggest strength, and they make me who I am, because I know that, in the worst of days,
Hmm.
they make me smile. People I have known through Twitter, people I've never ever met in my life,
Right.
they message me the first thing in the morning and ask me how I am. Priyoshmita, she's on Twitter. Gaurav, he on Twitter. I haven't met them.
Hmm.
Then my colleagues, my friends.
Hmm.
Means I have a huge support system, and the love I receive for them, I'm really, really, really indebted. I
Right.
couldn't have asked for.
No, I'm sure. I'm sure it's a blessing to have such amazing people around you, because then the energy is very different. The kind of energy you draw from them, it really lifts your own spirits.
Exactly. Just a few days back, someone told me you have the best people in your life, and I said, "Touch wood."
Hmm.
That's the truest thing someone has ever told me.
Yeah.
And yes, I do have the best people in my life.
No, absolutely. Knock on the wood, and may your tribe grow. Devina, tell me something. You mentioned about the corporate, culture and the work that you do, and it's hectic and
Right.
it's obviously energy draining.
Right.
So, how are you able to
Right.
manage that with this medical condition of yours?
It's very difficult, especially on days, I don't feel well.
Hmm.
And to be really honest, means in a professional sphere, especially a corporate setup where you have urgent deliverables and one day deliverables, etc.
Yeah.
it's not also it's not also fair to expect that your reporting manager or your superior will always be able to give you the time to do things at your comfortable pace.
Right.
So I understand that. So it gets difficult for me. So at times what happens, the work which should ideally take me 8 hours or so, I have to stretch and do it over a period of time, because I can't continuously work and do it at the speed which I normally do. But at the same time, I've always been a workaholic, and it's going to be 15 years on this 3rd of November, 15 years of my work life. And I started my career with journalism, and that too TV journalism. And I had to slog my way through.
Right.
And journalism can be a very, very, very tough taskmaster.
Yeah.
So there's no time, etc. And there have been days, when I've been at work with 102 temperature. This is before the cancer, etc. So, and this part you can call it my ego, because people do. I do not want sympathy, or I do not want told that okay, we are going to consider your health situation, and maybe you couldn't do it because of your health.
Right.
So yeah, that part is my ego, and I push myself even on days it's terrible, and I make sure that deliverables are not only met in time but at times for time. So yeah, that's one part I think I should work on, and I should do differently. But yes, I am human.
Right.
I cannot be perfect. So my ego comes to play in this, where my professional life is concerned. And really, I don't want anyone's sympathy or anyone to even think for once that, okay, she's unwell and that's why she can't do it. So this year too, in the appraisals, I had the highest rating, and God willing, inshallah, I hope I have it next year too. So
absolutely. But do you also think, sit back and think sometimes that, you're probably being too hard on yourself and it's okay to slow down?
I do think about it, but the next day I start pushing myself again.
Right.
So I've been told multiple times that, I'm being too hard on myself and I have nothing to prove to anyone. Exact words. I've been told that by my friends, by a number of times. And I know that myself. But, the problem is I don't think about anyone else. I think of myself. I think somewhere I have something to prove to myself that I will not let anything beat me down.
Right.
So I don't know if it's right or if it's wrong, but I keep pushing myself, even if no one else is.
No, as long as it's making you happy, it's all worth it. It just has to make you happy. If it's not making you happy also at the end of the day, then obviously the effort is just useless, right?
Yeah, I know. But when I do win all those awards month after month, touch wood, it means, I know I'm sounding like an egoist, 100% egoist, but it does give me a lot of satisfaction.
No, absolutely. I mean, I can understand, that that never giving up and never saying, I can't do this kind of an attitude. It's absolutely fine, because you are probably in that mind space because you're battling, a very deadly disease, and at the same time you're trying to prove yourself to yourself more than anybody else that yes, I can do this and I can do that as well. So
exactly. And it didn't start with cancer. Means, if I may digress for a few minutes,
sure.
It actually started from a point my father passed away. I'm the only child, and everyone thought that, my family especially, and how most Indian families are. So they thought that, that this one has always been a rebel without a pause. So now that, her biggest ally, her champion, her dad is no longer there. Maybe she will tone down.
Right.
But from that point on, 1st June 2014, I didn't let myself cry. I didn't cry for a minute when my dad passed away because I couldn't. I couldn't. I don't know if my extended family will be listening to this podcast and how they will react to it, but I've always believed in honesty, and I knew that the minute I break down, most of them would be ready to, pounce on me and my mother. And one I hate being termed as is a bichari. Means call me a bitch. I'm okay with it. Sorry for the...
No.
But call me... I'm okay with it, but don't refer to me as a bichari. I can't take it.
I hear you. I think I know where you're coming from, that you don't want people's pity, right? It's
I don't.
I think it's a very strong sense of self-belief and self-esteem and the dignity that you hold very dear to yourself, and that's right. It stems from self-love, so there's nothing wrong in that. And I'm also
I have a lot of self-love.
Absolutely. I'm also the only child, so I know that rebel streak. It comes very naturally to single children. And I've also been a rebel all my life, always questioning the establishments of the society. Why this, why that, why should I believe in that? And just because you're telling me, why I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to follow that. I've been like that, but not in an outrageous way, maybe in a quieter way. I'll be defying it by not doing it. So yeah, so I understand where you're coming from, and it's fine. I think you're a very strong woman and strong-minded, and there's nothing wrong in that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, let's get into a fun section now, and we'll do a rapid fire. Right. So you'll have to be nice about it.
Exactly.
Okay. So one thing about yourself that you're very proud of.
My strength.
Right.
Yeah, mental strength.
Okay, excellent. If you could describe your life in a song.
Do you want me to sing?
Sure, absolutely. No one's ever sung on my show, yeah. Please do.
Okay. हर घड़ी बदल रही है रूप जिंदगी, छाँव है कभी कभी है धूप जिंदगी, हर पल यहाँ जी भर जियो, जो है समा कल हो न हो. And by the way, I love SRK. He's the one true love of my life.
Okay, I don't want to judge you, but I will ignore that. Beautiful. You sing really well. It was so beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, an advice that you'd like to share with everyone who's listening to you right now.
Be kind. Everyone is going through some battle you don't know about, so be kind.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your mantra in life?
Live and let live.
Oh yes, I completely believe in that. High five.
High five.
An accessory that you carry at all times. I think you already said that, but sure, you can go ahead and tell me that again.
My lipstick, it has to be two. My lipstick and my coal. Always there.
Right. And the attitude. Don't forget that.
And the confidence. Yeah, and the attitude. Yeah, the badass attitude.
Absolutely. A person who inspires you the most.
My mom. Because while growing up, my dad was in the Intelligence Bureau, and he had a considerable job. And my school was pretty far from where we live. So, in Bengali, we have a word called Doshabhuja. It refers to basically Durga and a woman who does 10 different things at the same time.
Yeah.
So my mother used to do that, taking me to school, making me the most delicious of lunches my friends would fight over, taking me to the tuitions, doing the bank work, cooking. We didn't have a house help back then, and she would do everything without complaint. And I swear, Diksha, with or without cancer, I cannot imagine myself doing that.
No, I'm sure. Even I can't imagine myself doing that. It's just too much to take on. I really don't know how mothers have managed to do this.
I would never be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. They were really Durga. You're right. With 10 hands, and probably 10 heads also thinking simultaneously 10 different things.
Yes,
So
yes, and being a mother to a difficult child like me
yeah,
means
I don't think any child is easy. To be honest, every child is difficult. They all have their phases of growing up. So,
very
yeah.
good.
What's your guilty pleasure?
One is vodka, which I fondly refer to as vitamin V. And, I'm constantly counting calories.
Hmm.
But one thing I cannot resist is brownies,
Oh yeah,
especially from Nahum, the store at Newmarket.
awesome.
Brownies from Nahum's, I cannot say no to,
Oh great,
ever.
lovely. That's okay. That's okay. It's allowed once in a while. Yeah, I have this crazy fondness for baking. So I'm a very moody baker. I don't bake very often, but whenever I do, I really have to spoil myself. So, and I spoil everybody else in the house too. So
I
it's fun.
wish I meet you someday and you can spoil me.
Yeah, absolutely. Please tell me your address and I'll courier you something. Okay.
No, I would love to meet you and, have it with you.
Sure. Please do. We shall park that conversation offline.
Yes, we
Okay.
will.
If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Healing.
And what would you
I
do?
would
Hmm.
physically, especially children
Hmm.
who are suffering from terminal diseases, because while in Tata Memorial, I used to see little kids who had to carry pouches because they couldn't pass urine normally like others do, like healthy person does.
Yeah.
I've seen little kids, and means no one deserves cancer, no
Right.
one deserves so much of suffering, but little kids who don't even understand what it is.
Yeah.
Means if I had a superpower, I would heal children of such diseases. I really would.
It's beautiful. Absolutely. I think everyone can do with a little more kindness and healing powers in this world for sure.
Right.
So no, thank you so much. It has been amazing talking to you, and thank you so much for opening up. With such a candid conversation. It's been amazing to have this
Thank you for the
chat with you.
opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity and thinking me worthy for this chat. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I'm glad we connected. Thank you so much.